introduce Lisa Hardmeyer Gray. Lisa is certified mindful-based stress reduction instructor through the Center of Mindfulness at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. Lisa has been teaching MBSR, and mindful training since 2010. Her clients include International Community Health Services, Healthcare Systems, King County Health Incentive Program, Port of Seattle, UW Center for Family and Child Wellbeing, and Washington Physicians Health Program. That's a lot. And thank you, Teresa, for introducing me, and I'll let Claudia introduce.
We're a little unclear on who was introducing who, but I'm Claudia Finkelstein. I'm a general internist with the UW Long-Term Care Service, and the reason I'm here is that I'm also the director of faculty wellness programs. So we've gotten some mindfulness, subsidized mindfulness training going, which we'll let you know a little bit more about. So I think I'm just going to go over the learning objectives and then hand it over to Lisa. Thank you. We're all handing everything over. All right. See, I told you with learning objectives. So first of all, I want to let you know, first, very grateful how many of you are in here. We didn't know if we would get 3 or 30 or how many. So it's really wonderful the degree of interest that is available. That's going on. What you may or may not know is that you signed up for a little bit of a participatory session. So we are encouraging, see if you can put away your electronics. It's an invitation, not a you must. And we realize that some people need to be on their beepers and cell phones, etc. But we'll try to do this device-free if possible. So we're doing a bit of a good cop, bad cop, and I'm the bad cop that depresses you. So we're going to be looking at factors contributing to provider burnout. And Lisa's going to talk to you a little bit about what mindfulness is and isn't. We're going to look at the concept of resiliency, sort of the flip side of burnout. Look at why do we care, right? What is the impact on patient care, apart from just the impact on individual providers of care. Going to look a little bit at the cost effectiveness, structure, and best practices. This is the participatory part. We're going to do a little brief mindfulness exercises, and this is the compulsory part. We're going to have fun. Just as a matter of interest, can you show how many of you are providers of care? Ooh, that's a lot of you. Okay, so I feel I'm there with you guys. It's not easy these days. How many of you administer people who provide care? Also not a pleasure, and most of you are doing both. All right, so good. We've got some, and any other populations in here? Oh, perfect. Come perform. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Lisa now, and I'll be back.
Okay. I'd just like to reiterate what Claudia said. Thank you for being here. It's really, I'm sorry that the need is here, but we're really excited to be able to introduce some of what mindfulness practices are able to have an impact on some of the problems that are really being faced with providers in the healthcare system. So mindfulness is becoming very trendy. How many people have heard of mindfulness through some kind of magazine or article? Anybody see the 60 Minutes episode with Anderson Cooper going through his mindfulness training? Any other ways people have heard about it? How many people have actually practiced some kind of mindfulness? That's amazing. Okay. So it is very trendy, and with that comes some positive things and some not so great things. So there's a little bit of hype. And I put this up there not to make anybody feel bad after yesterday. I'm sorry. But last winter I had a lot of people coming to my classes saying, if the Seahawks have a mindfulness trainer, it must be doing something, so I have to check this out. And I was at a conference with a guy named George Mumford, who actually trained the Lakers and then went on to the Knicks. He did mindfulness training under Phil Jackson. And I was saying that I thought mindfulness training really started the day that the Seahawks lost the Super Bowl. Because it's not, a lot of people are seeing mindfulness as this optimization of performance and focus. And while it can be that, it is also, it's also how do we meet all the stresses in our lives? How do we meet the successes, the failures, the ups and downs, all the stress that is in our day-to-day life. So there's a lot of hype, but I hope underneath this today you'll experience kind of some of the essence of really what is at the bottom of these practices. And Tim Ryan is a congressman from Ohio who's creating a mindful nation, trying to bring mindfulness into healthcare and the education system. Actually trying to get Congress to do a little mindful practice on the Hill, so we'll see where that goes. But maybe more germane to this audience are some other headlines from American Medical News using mindfulness to soothe physician stress, easing doctor burnout with mindfulness. And we'll be highlighting this article or this study a little bit later in JAMA on mindful communication. This was one of the first big studies that was done on physician burnout and mindfulness. So again, we'll practice a little bit and we'll learn a little bit. And these practices are really invitational. But the one kind of caveat to any mindful practice is to just be curious and open. Be curious and open. So if you would, standing up. We've all probably been sitting a lot today. And just feeling your body, feeling the movement, just getting up with awareness. So mindfulness is an awareness practice, present focused awareness practice. So just starting, I'll just kind of walk through 3 or 4 objects of awareness, if you will. And you can do this with your eyes closed, you can do it with your eyes slightly closed, but going from kind of the external, all of the information you've been taking in, all of the people you've been interacting with, all of the ideas for what you'll take out of this conference going forward, just turning internally a little bit. And just scan through the body and just noticing anything that's going on in the body, any areas of held tension, any areas of lightness. I'm noticing people are trying to kind of, move their bodies because they're noticing the tension. So all you have to do is notice it. You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to try to change it or fix it, but just notice any tension, any lightness, anything. Maybe tiredness, maybe excitement. All right, and then we're going to move on to the breath. So just beginning to feel the breath in the body, the inhalation, the exhalation. There's no right, there's no wrong. There's no correct way to do this. It's just noticing. And then letting the breath just be, just for a minute, just scanning through our experience. What are our thoughts? Just what are our thoughts in the moment? And we'll get into later what this has to do with stress. Are we thinking, are we planning ahead? Are we worrying about something in the future? Are we in the past, something that happened this morning or 10 years ago? Maybe it's just one thought that we just can't let go of. Maybe just a bunch of little insignificant thoughts, but just without chasing anything away or just noticing. And then finally noticing any emotions that are present. We're kind of creating a body of emotional intelligence within this work. So noticing if there's any excitement, boredom, joy, fear, tired. And you might even notice in these few minutes the mind has this tendency to wander. What it's like to try to just stay focused. All right, and then opening your eyes and sitting down. Thank you. And we're going to debrief with a neighbor. So just turning to someone close to you. And we're going to just talk through 3 questions. Maybe introduce yourself. And what did you notice in this experience? What did you notice about your experience? What seems to be the impact of doing this? And then finally, why do you think we opened this activity? Okay, and we'll just take a couple minutes each. So just turning to a neighbor. So we want to just get a little bit of feedback that we can kind of share. Kind of we're learning in a shared environment, so learning from each other. So just a couple, maybe 2 or 3 noticings. What did people notice in this experience? Any volunteers?
I noticed I'm carrying a lot more attention than I thought I was. When you told me to relax, it's like, well, I am. But then it's like, oh, I guess not.
So you noticed it?
So I just noticed, oh, I relaxed that.
Was it in one part of the body in particular?
Well, I've had surgery on my knee, and so that's constantly tends to keep my knee intact,
Yeah.
so it doesn't move on me. But then I was able to like, oh, yeah, let's let go of it. So that was the main thing. But just kind of,
Yeah. Thank you.
I'd say, just taking the time, it wasn't very long, and I could just sense that I was switching from my sympathetic fire and fight to a more parasympathetic, relaxed experience. And a lot of us, I think, throughout our days are busy putting out fires, and within a 5 to 10 minute period of time, if you could practice this, you switch over, and that's so important. And it's really nice.
Yeah. And it doesn't take that long. You're right. You can, like 2 minutes can just really have a big impact on the body. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Any experience that wasn't so great?
I think it's always interesting when doing these things for me that how crazy my mind is inside, because there's 1,000 things just run through, and then when you have just that moment to kind of, it's like a snow globe, with all the snow flying around, and it starts to just kind of settle in, and all of a sudden all the snow's
Yeah.
gone. So.
And then you can shake it and start all over again.
Really easily.
Thank you. Maybe one more?
So I was just going to say, I try to meditate, and it's an ongoing process. And every time I try to do that, it's really about trying to bring myself to the present as much as possible, because we're so often worried about the future, and I'm going to do this and that, or like, oh, I have regrets about this that I did a few minutes ago, and so on. So it really is about bringing yourself into the present as much as possible.
Yeah. How was this moment, this experience for you?
I gave a talk a little earlier, and I was very nervous, and I probably had some of that nervousness within myself, and I think it certainly does calm me down.
Yeah. We'll talk more about what it does neurologically, physiologically to the body. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I get to do the fun part, and poor Claudia gets to now.
There we go. Yeah. I'm going to shake our globe. All right. So the only thing almost as popular as mindfulness in all the magazines these days is burnout, right? It even made it to Time magazine, is your doctor depressed? And the answer is very frequently, yes, right? So I'm just going to go over a few things about burnout. Briefly touch on the formal definition. So, we can all run around and say, oh, I'm so burned out, sort of how people casually use the word depressed. But in the literature, there's the formal definition of mindfulness. Burnout. That was not so mindful. And we'll go over that. We'll examine what the 3 spheres of mindfulness are and look at the Maslach Burnout Inventory, which was the instrument that was used in the original Burnout survey studies, and compare it to the 2-item index. All right, so the Maslach Burnout Inventory. This has been around for a really long time. Occupational psychologist Christina Maslach developed a 23-item questionnaire. It's proprietary and it takes a really long time. And it happens to be the instrument that was used in one of the first studies, survey studies of large groups of physicians. And here's where I want to put in, I don't know if it's a negative or positive plug for the UW internal medicine residency, because it was one of our residents that surveyed all of his co-residents, and the burnout numbers were staggering and horrible. So we're sort of proud of him that he's gone on to make a fabulous career out of burnout. But it's sort of maybe not such good news. Anyway, so that's the MBI, Maslach Burnout Inventory 23-item scale. That's what's used in the literature. And it defines a syndrome characterized by 3 spheres. So there are 3 spheres in the 23-item index. One of them is emotional exhaustion. Wonder if anybody in here can relate to that, right? You don't have to raise your hand. Number 2, depersonalization. So when you just sort of shut down, don't see people as people anymore, see them more as objects. And the third one is a decreased sense of personal accomplishment. What's interesting is this 3rd sphere of burnout, you see it a lot in trainees, but by the time people are practicing physicians, it's not so obvious anymore because, you know, even on our worst day, we go to work and generally do something good for people, right? So it's just the trainees that are still nervous. So, as I said, it's a very cumbersome, long instrument to give, but if you can say yes to either of these 2 statements more often than a couple of times a year, you may want to consider exploring further as to whether you're burned out or not. I feel emotionally burned out or emotionally depleted from my work. I've said yes to this more times than I can count. You know, I mean, it's, my kid saw, you know, the handout lying around. She goes, "What's this?" I said, "I'm giving a talk about burnout." She goes, "Ha, you should talk." You know? So, I mean, just because you go out and talk about it doesn't mean you're immune, right? So, the 2nd scale, I have become more callous towards people since I took this job, treating patients and colleagues as objects instead of humans. So, if you say yes more than a few times a year to either of these are the first 2 scales. There is not, there's not a single item that correlates so well with the decreased sense of personal accomplishment. And it may be the split in the populations, you know, the trainees and the others. But this might be useful. It's also proprietary. All right, so why are we talking about burnout? The numbers are shocking. This is a crappy slide because you probably can't see it from the back, but it looks at the, you know, sort of the mean incidence of burnout in a given population. At the top, we have emergency medicine physicians coming in at 70%. All right, when they survey them, up to 70% display symptoms of burnout. The happy guys at the bottom, preventive medicine, occupational health, environmental, still 30% of them, all right? And the mean for all different specialties, the dark blue, comes in at about 44%. So you guys here at primary care, near the top, like me, family medicine and internal medicine are in the 50 to 60 range, all right? So not a trivial public health problem among the providers of health. So I'm not going to bore you with every single, you know, there are so many articles, but the top one, Tate Shanafelt was our resident. Yay, Tate. And he did the huge survey of the American College of Surgeons. And it's sort of chilling looking at the numbers of surgeons who scored positive for burnout, suicidal ideation, all sorts of stuff that you really wouldn't want your surgeon to be having going on when they're about to cut into you or your knee or, you know. It's not only practicing physicians, it's at every level of training. So there have been so many surveys done, and they all sort of reinforce each other. So, you know, in all these talks, somebody's got to have an iceberg slide, right? So as maybe the 5th iceberg slide you've seen over this series, but I've got to have it in. Burnout is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? There's more than that, obviously. So besides burnout, substance abuse. Very interestingly, our substance abuse numbers are not wildly different than that of the general population, except for female surgeons drink more. I don't know why, but the female surgeons tend to drink more. So disruptive behavior, who likes that, right? Once you have this going on in your organization, it's really such a hassle and expense and craziness for everybody. So much better if you can do something to prevent or at least allay episodes like this. Mood disorders, again, we're about like the general population, except for guess who? The medical students are anxious. Does that come as any surprise to anybody, right? So they're a little more anxious, but other than that, our mood disorders are about equal. Suicide, different story. So we kill ourselves more often and better than the general population. It's not a small amount. 40% higher for male doctors. Look at this one. 130% higher for female doctors. I'm not sure why. I still get goosebumps when I show this slide because, I don't know, if you stop and think for a moment, I bet you almost everybody in this room has a 1 or 2 or at most 3rd degree of separation with somebody who has attempted or succeeded in suicide. I have more than I can count right now, and that's a tragedy, right? Told you I was going to depress you. All right, here's more. Not only the physicians themselves, right? It's like their families. You know, like now I'm old and wise, right? And I look back at when my daughters were growing up, and I think, wow. You know, I mean, luckily they're pretty forgiving and wonderful human beings, but the stuff we carry home sometimes is really extraordinary. Absolutely affects the patients, right? I think that, you know, if you have a doctor who's completely checked out and not, how can you provide patient-centered care if you're not even there? The institution also gets affected, right? And healthcare delivery because of turnover, et cetera, et cetera. This slide just goes over to the same thing. So if you don't believe that it's a good thing to deal with physician health just because it's a good thing to do, and if you're someone who believes in numbers and metrics and all that stuff, as we all are, you just look at the physician shortage. If people retire early or burn out or kill themselves, this does not help the physician shortage, right? Medical errors and malpractice, it's kind of an infinite loop. So if you make an error, you are more likely to burn out. And if you are burned out, you are more likely to make a medical error. So that goes both ways, but it's something that we don't want more of, clearly. Patient-centered care. There are interesting studies about happy physicians have more compliant patients. Kind of interesting, you know, the mood of the person prescribing whatever treatment or test actually affects how much you are going to go through with it, and that's kind of interesting. The currency of perception also kills me. You know, when you open the newspaper and it's like, Arkansas general internist arrested for blah, 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 fill in the blanks. I mean, it's not, it happens everywhere, and I think that people who are near the edge are much more likely to be these badly behaved doctors who show up in the news. I get one colorful slide. What about joy? I mean, so we're talking about preventing all the bad stuff, right? But there's also all sorts of great stuff. And imagine if we not only sort of diminished our stress, but enhanced our capacity for joy. I think in this time of ever-changing medical practice, creativity, boy, do we need that. Let's figure out a better way to do this. And so creativity is not only in how can you paint or dance or sing, but how you come at problem solving, right? And compassion, absolutely. I don't know if we'll have time later in the question and answers. There's also now, in addition to mindfulness training, compassion cultivation training, which is very, very interesting and closely related. All right, now I've depressed you. You get the good guy back.
The good guy is, okay. So we're going to keep kind of interweaving content and practice. So the invitation again is to just close your eyes or sit with your eyes slightly closed. Doing another check-in. What are you feeling? What are you noticing in the body after Claudia just completely depressed you? No. But what do you notice in the body? Is there more tension? And again, we're not trying to fix it or change it. We're just really trying to be aware. We're just cultivating awareness so that we have choices. So in those moments, when it really hits the fan, we have some choices. And then, what do you notice now with the breath? Just dropping into the breath for a minute. Just taking that moment. Just kind of tuning in, stopping for a moment. It's hard. And then just noticing the thoughts. Are the thoughts in the past, in the future? So we're just doing these practices to just watch. We're getting to know how we can have some options, choices, and then just noticing the wandering attention. And the emotions. Joy, fear, sadness, relief, excitement, maybe new ideas. Okay, and then opening our eyes or just bringing your focus back to the room. Maybe just a few comments, if there are any volunteers. Maybe just noticing, what did you just notice in this little practice, maybe in contrast to before we went into the content, but just any noticings of our experience. Yeah.
All those facts, I felt like everything was across my chest, across my throat, across my face. It was really turning on myself.
Did anyone else feel that with all the content? Thank you. Any other observations?
I'll do it. The second check-in was harder for me. The first, and it wasn't because of the material. I think the first one we did, it was kind of unfocused already. I mean, we were just getting together, sitting down, and know what's going on. But then we had a real time of focus on some really important material, and I wanted to continue that learning and continue that line of thinking. So stopping was hard for me to do.
Yeah.
So I just had to keep on trying to bring it back in. And I heard the words again and again. This is a practice. You're not doing a good job.
in your mind.
In my mind,
yeah,
I heard that.
yeah.
You're not doing this practice
Yes,
well.
right.
You
You're
need to
right.
practice this more often.
Did anyone, and you don't have to raise your hand, did anyone notice when they were thinking, did anyone notice any kind of self-criticism? Yeah, I mean, it is, the more I teach and talk to people, it is it's an epidemic. I don't know if it's just this country, but we are really, really, really hard on ourselves. And it shows up in a lot of different ways. Any other observations?
When we've been sitting a long time, and when you kind of start focusing back internally, I hurt.
Yeah.
And I noticed that from sitting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we're going to address that. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So all right. So we had a few little experiences of meditation, but now our mindfulness. But now I really want to go into some kind of working definitions. What is mindfulness? It's a process. It is actually John Kabat-Zinn was a long-time mindfulness practitioner who, in the late 70s, created the mindfulness-based stress program at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. He was a molecular biologist. He'd walk in every day into this hospital and just see this enormous stress and suffering, and wanted to figure out how he could bring these practices into a medical healthcare setting. So he created this program. It's now in thousands of hospitals, counseling centers, medical centers. But he didn't create mindfulness. He just came up with a really accessible program, and has a working definition that's pretty. It's pretty popular. So mindfulness is paying attention, which we were doing in a particular way, on purpose. So we kind of set this time aside to work with the mind in the present moment. And we'll see why being in the present really can relieve our stress, even if we just take a couple minutes a day to do just little things. And most importantly, maybe is non-judgmentally. So whatever our thoughts are, or our emotions are, what's that? Oh.
You're going to say good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Yeah, it is hard. It is incredibly hard. We've evolved to be judgmental, or we wouldn't have survived. So we're swimming upstream a little bit. But we'll notice how that kind of can play on our overall well-being. So what mindfulness is, it really is training the mind. There is a power in just being able to work with our mind to relieve our stress and to relieve stress is suffering, to relieve our stress. And it's turning off autopilot. You know, if you ever had those times where you get in the car at work and you were going to go to the store and pick up something, and all of a sudden you're in your driveway and you don't even know how you got there? Who was driving? So it's putting us back into the driver's seat of these moment-to-moment life. You know, we wake up, we have this to-do list, we go to bed, did our to-do list get done, and that's our life. And I don't mean to be minimizing it, but some days really feel that way. And so we're turning off autopilot and bringing more awareness to these moments, so that in between this to-do list, we get to live a little bit and recover some of that just innate joy. All of this is something we already have. We've just been kind of conditioned to, we've been conditioned. And then cultivating presence. So, you know, the present is really the only time we have to live, to love, to grow, to learn, to be. So we're kind of getting out of a way of doing and moving into a way of being, even in little moments throughout the day. What it isn't. It's not New Agey or religion. Anybody can practice mindfulness. It has nothing to do with, there are contemplative elements of mindfulness in many practices, but it's not New Agey. It's not thinking or escaping. Somebody showed me this pamphlet that was thrown on her doorstep the other day in northern Seattle for this meditation class, and it's stop thinking, and all the ways of stopping thinking. It's not thinking. It's just not having the thinking in the driver's seat all the time. And it's not escaping. It's very pragmatic. It's very practical. And it's not necessarily a relaxation technique, though that may be a benefit. But it's a practice of noticing and awareness, and not necessarily striving or a goal to do one more thing well or better. It's the opposite of almost every way we've learned. And it's not mindfulness. I put this here because people think if I'm really in touch with my thoughts and my emotions, I'm just navel gazing. And what good is that? And really, the good is that it connects us to our deepest humanity. And when we connect to our deepest humanity, we connect to the deepest humanity of everyone. So it starts here, but it extends outward. So a little bit of I don't know, just any reaction people might have to kind of why am I doing this Northwest navel gazing or Californians. But it really does have very practical applications when we talk about patient-centered care. Okay, so somebody said they've been sitting all day. So there's many ways to practice mindfulness. We can sit, we can do mindful walking. Now we're going to do a little mindful movement. If you would be willing, just to stand up, and again with awareness, just feeling your body, getting out of the chair. These are really simple. Somebody said there's a yoga person, maybe. Yes, okay, so we're just going to do mindful movement. I was so pleased to hear Dr. Gaston this morning address stress, and on the top of her list was meditation and prayer, and somewhere down was Tai Chi and yoga. I couldn't quite believe it. So we're going to do just a couple practices, very simple of each. And these are things that can be done, just throughout the day. So let's see. Let's just feel your feet on the floor. This is also just a great way to bring yourself into the present moment, just feeling your feet on the floor. And then we're just going to drop our shoulders and exhale and drop the chin. And as if we have a crayon on our chin, just drawing this semicircle, this smile from shoulder to shoulder, just back and forth. And then rolling the head all the way to the side, to the back, other ear. Just taking a couple moments just to feel some full circles. Breathing. And reverse, just rolling head in the other direction. Noticing a lot of cracks and crinkles. And bringing the head up, and then we'll just roll our shoulders up and back and down. And when we do these movements, it's like the arms are cooked spaghetti. So we're kind of letting go of the tension in the body, offering some spaciousness into the shoulders, the back of the neck. These computers are killing us. Literally. Okay, reverse direction. And then just shaking out the arms. We're going to do just a couple more movements. So just taking a big inhalation, bringing the arms up overhead, and then just stretching from side to side like you're picking apples off a tree. Feeling the stretch up the side, breathing. If you're holding your breath, you might be straining a bit, so breathing. And stretching up one more time with both arms, and then exhaling, floating the arms down, feeling the arms moving. Shaking the arms out again. And then we're going to do one little movement that is from Qigong, Tai Chi. These are, anybody familiar with Tai Chi or Qigong? Yeah, they're old, ancient movements that they're part of a healing arts. Just the intention is to bring into the body what's healing and nurturing and letting go of what isn't. So simplifying it. All right, so feeling the feet on the floor. And thank you for being open and willing to try this stuff. Okay, so hard to do with the microphone. I'll do one arm.
I'll hold the mic.
Okay, all right, all right. Okay, so the arms are just at the side. And just letting the hands kind of swing back a little, bending the knees slightly, and just bringing the hands up. It's like water is dripping from the fingertips. Inhaling, and then exhaling, pointing the fingertips up and letting the arms just float back down. Bending the knees, softening, bouncing up almost a little bit. Breathing in and exhaling. One more time. You know, that oxygen to these tight parts of our bodies. Okay, and then just letting the arms shake out a little bit. Oh, I could do this for hours. Okay. All right. Thank you. So that's just a little taste of some of the mindful movement practices and some of the benefits, raising body awareness so that we really start to connect when we feel, when we're more connected to our body and we notice this tension in the shoulders. What are the thoughts going on? What can I do in the body to relieve some of the tension? It lowers stress, decreases incident of injury. Anybody feel a little more energized? Some plants, yeah. So just a little bit can be a lot. Improving concentration and promoting relaxation. Okay, so I thought maybe I could drop this whole section of the presentation after Dr. Gaston said, we need to do something about stress, and here's what you can do. I thought, that's enough evidence, isn't it? But we all come from Western scientific backgrounds, and we like evidence. So I think the thing that really put mindfulness in the mainstream and made it accessible in healthcare is the evidence-based research. So I'm going to highlight both some surveys and some actually brain scan research. So this was one of a big study that was done in Rochester, New York by Dr. Mick Krasner and Ron Epstein. They studied 70 physicians. The MBSR here is the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. 8 weeks is kind of the gold standard of the mindfulness programs. It's 29 to 33 hours. It usually is about 2.5 hours a week, and then 1 full day. And then they did a 10-month follow-up, a 2.5-hour class, 10 months. And these are the measurements they used: Maslach, empathy scale, belief scale, and mood state. What they found is improvements in well-being, increased patient-centered orientation, and a little more research on that, a little more analysis on that same study, reduced professional isolation. So I actually teach right across the street. It was so funny, I was looking out my hotel room into the room where I teach physicians. And it's amazing getting a room full of physicians together. And I say physician, but it could be providers, that there's so much isolation. They're the caretakers. And who takes care of the caretakers? So to be in that room together, to be able to share some of the stress and suffering that people see and deal with on a daily basis, there was a great amount of relief to have this a peer group. And improved attentiveness to patients, greater self-awareness, and then, so how many physicians feel they have, or providers feel they have an extra 27 or 33 hours? Not many, and Claudia knows this. They tried an 8-week program at UW with the residents, and they quickly had to modify it to 5 weeks. And so this is an abbreviated study that was done with 30 primary care physicians. And again, most of these studies are done with physicians. There are some studies that have been done with mental health providers, but there's no reason to believe the benefits wouldn't extend to all providers. So they did a baseline and 3 follow-up points. The Maslach Burnout Inventory, again, depression, anxiety scale, and the stress scale. And the conclusions were better scores on all of these measurements, and reductions in job burnout, depression, anxiety, and stress. And so they've known for a long time, there are a lot of studies that look at the health benefits of mindfulness, chronic pain, heart disease. I feel like a snake oil salesman when I say even psoriasis, but there was a big study on psoriasis. But I think what's really interesting is now that they can look into the brains of people who are meditating or not meditating, they're finding some interesting information. And one of the areas that was studied was the anterior cingulate cortex, or what they found is an increased activation in this area of the brain. And every leadership training has to have a glacier slide, so every mindfulness training has to have a brain scan. Yeah, so self-regulation, and what they found is increased activation in this area of the brain. And anxiety comes from the inability to self-regulate emotions. And this area of the brain governs thinking and emotions, so it strengthens the cognitive ability to regulate emotions. And this can be, this is moving from that reactive mode to more of a response. And then the other big finding was an increased gray matter in the hippocampus area of the brain associated with learning and memory. And even with 27 minutes of mindfulness practice a day, it was, I think, movement and sitting, walking meditation. The area, different areas of the brain that were activated, and increased gray matter throughout other regions of the brain. And this is one of several slides that just show the difference in control between the control group, the mindfulness-based stress reduction participants, and then the change in gray matter concentration. So it was interesting that while they had all the research about why mindfulness is helpful to anxiety, now they could actually see why that was. And then this is just showing beta wave activity. On the left is an increased frequency of beta waves, and on the right, after meditation. And again, high frequency related to stress and anxiety, and then lower beta wave activity associated with more calmness, more balance, more centeredness. So I think this is really what ushered in so much of the studies. I think if you looked at mindfulness probably 10 years ago, if you looked at PubMed, you'd find maybe 10 articles. I think last year there were 450 studies published. Okay. So, moving back into practice, if you are willing to do one or two more practices. So this is when we're practicing mindfulness, breathing practice is probably one of the core practices. It's portable, it is very calming, bringing oxygen into the body, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you're interested in practicing a little bit, I'd ask you to just put your feet on the floor. And you can close your eyes, keep them softly open. It's just an opportunity to, in a supportive room, there's a little energy that's helpful, is just to go a little bit internally. And just feel the breath in the body. Just notice where the breath feels most vivid. We're not trying to have a certain experience. We're not trying to make the breath be a certain way, but just notice where it is, maybe the chest, maybe the nostrils, maybe the back of the throat. For a couple cycles of the breath, just seeing if you just following the inhalation and the exhalation. Notice the mind wanders. Every time it wanders, you just come back to the breath. Coming right back to the present. between the eyes. They were closed. Any observations?
Familiar illusion, when I've tried this before, that I'm not breathing, but the air in the room is breathing me. The sense that it's coming in with my volition.
What was your experience right now?
John Kabat-Zinn's tapes.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other observations? Frustrations? I hate this. I hated meditation for the first year and a half. Hated it. Hated it.
Very calming.
Calming.
Just made me sleepy.
What's
felt
that?
good. It made me
Made you
sleepy. That
sleepy?
really felt good, just to not even hear anything and just focus on my breathing.
Anybody really? Yeah.
I had this unfortunate little voice in my head that said, "This is lovely. When am I going to fit this in?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Go away.
Yes. Right now. Yes. We're going to talk a little bit about like how to fit that into the
Well, I
day.
was just going to say, what I do actually, because I do yoga, so I kind of practice the breathing. When I go I take off my administrative hat and go to the clinic, I have 5 minutes to get a latte. So while I'm waiting for the latte to be prepared, there's this little bathroom off of where the latte place is, and I just do that breathing technique, and it's amazing how much it just helps me, etc. It does not take much time.
I've had people do crazy, well, not crazy things, but one woman was like, I quit curling my hair in the morning because I realized I don't really care so much what I look like on the outside. I want to do some stuff internally. So she did. I noticed she had these really nice curls, and she'd start coming to class, and oh, she looks really different. She just quit curling her hair. People have gotten, faster espresso machines so that they don't have to wait in the morning so long for their coffee to brew.
I was just going to say, I'm a fairly new leader in my organization, and so everybody doesn't know me really well, but I do a lot of these kind of things on my own. So we were having a senior leader meeting a couple weeks ago, and there was some heated debate going on between my CFO, my COO, and the medical director, and it was just, the voices were raising, and it was just, so I said, stop, and everybody's looking around like, uh-oh, what's she going to say now? I said, everybody just put your hands down, I want you to close your eyes, so we did some breathing, and it was just really, I could feel the whole energy in the room just kind of come down, and so we just did it for a little bit, and then the dialogue got definitely a lot more serene, and it wasn't even that they were noticing how that was happening, and every one of them came to my office afterwards. How did you do? What did you do? Let's do more of that. And so it was really great because it was not, weird or anything like that. But they
natural.
could physically feel what
That's
happened
really
in the
great.
room
Yeah.
and how it shifted the ability for dialogue to take place.
Yes, yeah. I was thinking we should, instead, remember the stop, drop, and roll? Stop, drop, and breathe. Yeah. Thank you, yeah. Okay, is it you?
Is it me? Is it resilience?
It is you, okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about resiliency. We're going to talk about a couple of ways to bring this into your own workplace in little quick moments of the day, and then maybe into your organization.
Thank you. All right, yeah, we're kind of behind schedule, but we will mindfully make it up. Hurry up and be mindful. So resiliency is kind of the opposite of burnout, right? It's like the ability to bounce back when something happens. I love this slide of the little green shoot coming up because I think all of us, like medical people, are kind of in this emotional desert, and a few drops of water is all it takes for the resilient spirit to come back, which is kind of why we can be had for the price of a pen or a shopping bag, right? It's like anyone doing something nice for you is like an incredible thing. And so I think there's a great thirst out there. The number of people that I have talked to about this is extraordinary. And so let's build on the strengths we've got. So why is it important? So people are born with different temperaments, but we can all do something to enhance our resiliency. All right? I'll talk to you a little bit about the basics. What are our own individual benefits and the benefits for your practice? Okay, so I talked to you about the Maslach burnout inventory. Remember Maslow's pyramid? All right, this is the basic hierarchy of needs. So before you can reach the tip of the pyramid and self-actualize and be an amazing human being, you have to take care of the basics. And if you look at the basics, a day in clinic doesn't often allow you to even do those basics. How many, or not even to mention a day in the OR or a night on call, it's like eating, sleeping, peeing. All these things do not occur for many, many, many hours. Kind of hard to imagine that you would be at the top of your game. So consider attending to your basics. You guys are a biopsychosocial group, right? How can you foster your own resiliency? In terms of the mind, so I went nuts when they brought Epicare to my life. I really, really went nuts. I never learned to type. I'm a two-finger you know, and so then somebody got me this voice recognition. The tools to do the job, right? Make your life at least doable, you know, in terms of the body, back to the basics, make sure you sleep, eat, etc. And in terms of the spirit, I think that it's something that gets overlooked a lot, and we all, you know, have a yearning for human connection and to belong to something bigger than ourselves. Community, you know, this is, Lisa was talking about the social isolation, which is very, very real. So, this is my favorite slide because these were all my favorites. The old ways to deal with stress. You can suppress it, you can deny it, you can be a workaholic. This is one common way that we doctors do it, right? Because it's a very socially sanctioned way not to deal with your emotional life. It's just you throw yourself harder into work and everybody loves you for it. All right, just staying inordinately busy is another way to do it. There's all sorts of chemicals out there that we can use. Food, absolutely. And now there's Amazon and eBay, right? You know, it's like that little mouse can just click away, and when a lot of packages start arriving, you might want to look at what's going on. This is one of my personal favorites, coping strategies. However, you know, at some points it backfires. So I want to talk to you, what we did here today with Lisa was small snippets of some formal practices, okay? So formal practice are the exercises that you do at home, whether they are mindful movements or sitting and breathing. And here's the list of formal. But here's my second favorite slide. The goal is not to teach you how to breathe or how to sit down, right? You know how to do that. Sitting for hours on end is not necessary. Some people think that the longer you can sit, the wiser you must be. I have seen chickens sit on their nest for days on end. Wisdom comes from being mindful in all postures. So the goal is not for you to be an A1 breather or an A1 sitter, but to learn to connect with your experience right here, right now, so that as you go through life, you can be right here, right now. So I like to divide it into different parts of the day, right? The informal practices that you can do. Mindful toothbrushing. The shower also, okay, see, I'm trying not to go late, but I have so many great stories. At least I think they're great. But there's a Seattle gastroenterologist who wrote a book about becoming enlightened through his Sonicare toothbrush. All right? He had plaque that wouldn't go away, read the instructions, and then 2 minutes twice a day, he just paid attention. And seriously, I mean, it's kind of interesting, but toothbrushing is a very good informal practice. Being in the shower by yourself, without the whole committee that you're about to talk to later, right? Being with the soap and the bubbles and the smell. I mean, that's a wonderful opportunity to just be here now. So this is mindful breakfast. May take you longer than just like stuffing a bar in the car, but it's not a bad way to start, having a mindful meal. And just checking in with yourself mindfully. trying to keep off the radio and the telephone driving in, sort of connecting with your intention for the day. All right, noticing what happens to you when you open your email. You know, there's email apnea. You open it, you go, so, you know, try practicing breathing while you email. Take a moment, take a breath break. The Etch-a-Sketch is my favorite thing. So before entering the next patient's room, I sort of shake my mental Etch-a-Sketch. You know, I have the image so that the guy coming ahead does not have to pay the price for just what went on in the room before. You know, if you find some way of clearing yourself out before you go on to the next person. All right, more informal practices. How many million times do we wash or gel our hands, right? So if you take some mindful breaths while you're getting all that goop all over yourself, that might be another opportunity. Flight of stairs, you know, you may have to climb many, but do one of them mindfully. Or mindful on your walk to the meeting. Move your body. So I sneak into the bathroom and start, you know, and it really, really works. It's amazing. A couple of minutes of mindful movement or breathing, and the next place I'm going benefits greatly from it. Yeah, I'm with you on the bathroom break. All right, so noticing your body. All right, these are kind of self-evident, but you know, how often do you go through the day not even noticing what your body's telling you, right? Like the neck, it's a two-way street. You know, we're getting some signals there. It might be worth paying attention to them. There are reminders. You can put dots on things to remind you. You know, I had a breathe sticker on my beeper, so every time I rang, I would breathe and try to connect with, instead of, oh no, try to connect with, this is a human being who needs my help. You know, so something to remind you of your purpose and not that this is a pain. These are places you can get apps so that your phone can randomly ring and ask you if you are being mindful. And the being home. So device-free dinner, bedroom, evening in general. Gratitude journals, you know, in the positive psychology literature, they've shown that happiness, based on surveys, increases within a couple of weeks of keeping a gratitude journal. Writing down every day a couple of things that you're grateful for. And this is my favorite. I love cardigans. Mr. Rogers moment. When you come home, take off your literal or figurative white coat and put on your I am home self. All right? You are no longer the boss of everybody. So you just come home and be. All right, where are we? Okay, we are back to Lisa. And
so I'll just go through this quickly so we have some time for some questions and answers. But we're trying to get from this mindless reaction, and we could go into the stress physiology, which we don't have time to do. But we all know that moment where we're just reacting, and before we know what happened, we're activated, we're enraged, we're engaged, and you ever feel like that? And we're kind of unaware. We're disconnected from the experience, sometimes disconnected from our bodies, and we're just simply out of balance. And so taking these few moments, formally or informally as an organization or as your own practice, we just move to a place where we are more mindfully responding. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you know, it's like a muscle that we're building. And we become more aware. And we can move out of this habitual pattern of thinking and acting. And we connect more to ourselves, to the experience, and we're more in balance. And so I just want to spend a few minutes talking about what this looks like in an organization. So again, I talked about the 8-week class. That's kind of the gold standards, but there are lots of different ways to bring this into your organization. The replacement of a physician, and you could do the math on any of your staff, but for a physician, minimum of $250,000. And so we can bring some retention, and you know, I'm doing another presentation on retention, this can be a good tool for not just burnout, but for staff retention. And I want to say this is really needs to be a voluntary process. You've even experienced what it's like today to just kind of go a little bit internally. And I really think this has to be kind of voluntary and not mandatory. But anyway, so 8-week class, those are some, I gathered some costs from across different programs throughout the country. Some institutions like the UW subsidize the classes, so participants pay. But roughly $400 to $500 a participant. It comes out to about $10 an hour, so it's a relatively cost-effective training. And best practices. So again, you can find programs that are half-day intro. This is something that my organization would like. You can just do a half-day or full day. There have been modifications done to the 8-week program, 5-week, or like the abbreviated study that was done. That was in the Annals of Family Medicine. That was based on a 3-day intensive. And so the hype, the positive of the hype is these tools are really accessible. And it's a stressed out world. I think that the system is broken. Many systems are broken, the healthcare system. So, it's hard to ask people to do one more thing to work in an already broken system. But if there's a way that we can find a little bit of resilience and a little bit of peace of mind and recover the joy in our lives and our work, I would love to fix the system. So the hype has some not so great things, and that is that everybody is just hanging out their shingle. So if you're looking for this kind of training, look for certified programs. So the Center for Mindfulness, I think, is listing all their certified trainers. UCLA has the Mindful Awareness Research Center. So just you can look in your region but look at the training, look at the experience. It's an unregulated industry, so you just have to do a lot of homework. Okay, and so I think we have time. Okay, so another practice in this, I think this is why the patient-centered care really was was impacted by the study that was done on the 70 physicians. Loving kindness meditation is a mindful practice of, again, connecting us to ourselves as we worked with today, kind of what it's like to open up our mind, to have a different perception and different possibilities. We also can open up the heart through these practices and bringing the heart back into our workplace. So I wanted to invite you to just practice a couple minutes of loving kindness meditation. And you can close your eyes, feel your feet on the floor. Practice this to the extent you want or not. So just dropping into the breath for a minute. And you can do 10-day classes on just loving kindness meditation. So we'll bring it down to 2 minutes or a minute. So, but just calling to mind someone in your life who you are very fond of, who is a mentor, benefactor, someone you love. And just feeling what that feeling is like in the body. And these are little practices throughout the day that we can do just to connect to our mission, the heart of our mission to care. So just sending the intention to this loved one, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you find love and peace and joy. And just noticing the felt sense in the body of this practice. And then bringing yourself to mind. Even maybe yourself just as you are right now, maybe a younger version of yourself. Sometimes this is some of the more difficult work. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. Just noticing what this feels like in the body, without judgment. Even if we don't notice anything, just noticing that we don't notice anything. And then bringing to mind someone who was a little bit challenging. Not the most difficult person in your life, but just someone who just kind of didn't hear you well. And just noticing what that feels like in the body. And just thinking of this person. And sending the intention, may you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. And just noticing the felt sense in the body, whatever it is. And then we can extend this practice to all people, all beings. May we all be happy. May we all be healthy. May we all be safe. May we all find love, peace, and joy. Okay, and then opening our eyes. And we'll do one last practice. Which is mindful listening. So if we can just close before we get into any questions or answers, just turning to a neighbor, and the question would be, was there one thing that we learned today or one thing that we took away from this? And we're going to, I'm inviting you to practice listening, which is something we all desperately, desperately want. And it is hard to come by, just to be really listened to. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. So in this minute, just practicing offering our presence to each other, offering just this deep ability to listen, to just hold another person's experience, thought, life for a moment. So if you would just...
So we have one person talk and one listen.
Right, so it's a little, yes, it's not a dialogue. It's really one person talks, we won't do this forever, but just one person speaks, the other just listens, and then we'll switch. And just what it's like, and notice, so this is like a laboratory, which is kind of fun. You can notice, wow, what is my mind doing when I'm supposed to be sitting here listening? Am I figuring out where I'm going to go for dinner? Am I figuring out what I'm going to say in that meeting tomorrow? Am I trying to fix their problem? Just what's going on? And so it's a little bit of a laboratory of how do we listen. Okay, so, and then we'll switch. So we'll just speak for 1 minute and then we'll switch. So hang in there, we're 12 minutes from the end, so thank you. Yeah, almost here, almost there. Okay, so find your speaker and your listener, if you would. just switching, so whoever was speaking will now be listening and finish your thought or your sentence. Interrupt. Yes.
One of the family docs who works in my clinics has us doing an experiment right now. We have 7 clinics. We had a lot more dual sticks last year than usual. So just his clinic is doing a mindfulness exercise regularly to see, because someone said, why are we doing this? And someone else said, because you don't pay attention. And he thought.
You see, the applications are kind of limitless, right? So this, I don't know if this side of the room heard, but out of a group of clinics, one of them is doing an experiment in mindfulness because of an excessive number of needle sticks.
And we can afford to measure, because we have to measure anyway.
Because it's a quality.
We'll see what the result is if the needle sticks change.
Isn't that one? There's a family doc in Pennsylvania, Michael Boehm, who has brought mindfulness to the office. And so he's got stickers on the different patient charts, and it's the office staff who have had the mindfulness training, and the patient satisfaction is also increased. So it doesn't only have to be the providers of care, it doesn't have to be a gigantic intervention. So we have, at the U, we are subsidizing, so we charge people $100 instead of the typical $400 for a series. And then the wellness committee picks up the rest of it. And I'm surprised it's sold out like that. As soon as we announce it, people fill the classes. Any other questions? Or yeah?
I'm curious about the program, if it's scheduled during regular work hours or...
That's a great question. And I was going to tell you, looking for those 10 minutes, you can save yourself from a lot of brown packages showing up at your door if instead of surfing, you meditate. Like instead of shopping. That's what I'm working on.
But and you're talking about bringing it into an organization. I found both. The wellness program at King County and the Port of Seattle both have it as part of their staff day. The physician groups did it in the evening.
And ours is, at the U, we do it on a Sunday, which is really strange, but people love the Sunday evening because it's sort of like, instead of the Sunday evening freaking out, oh my gosh, here we go again. The Sunday evening time seems to be a good one. Yeah.
So thank you, first of all, for sharing this and really application to providers and physicians. I'm a Tibetan myself, and practice Tibetan Buddhism and see a lot of similarities in terms of what you shared. And just to kind of comment a little bit about the application to our daily lives and how we as physicians in general are very self-judgmental, self-critical, and I think there's a lot of emphasis on doing something the right way. And so I've been getting into meditation myself more recently, even though I had rich background to learn from with thousands of years of information. But it is that idea that, as we're really concentrating, as we're focusing, I think meditation in Sanskrit loosely translates to awareness, being more awake to the present. And in Tibetan, that gets stronger over time. And I remember hearing some very experienced practitioners in meditation, practitioners saying that, hey, I'm able to get this much amount of time with these many years of practice.
Right.
So as I'm sitting down trying to concentrate on breathing, as I'm trying to be in the present moment, I can only do that for 5 seconds before the microsecond mind streams come into play, distracted away. It's discouraging.
And every
frustrating.
time you bring it back, that's a moment of awareness, right? And I think you're bringing up a good thing. The myth is that you will sit there and get it, right? There's no getting. It's just you sit. And sometimes you're focused with the breath, and sometimes you're off in, and it's different every time. But sitting is what counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're a chicken.
Unless you're a chicken, right?
So I just wanted to say, we'll take, if there's time for a few more questions, but Sadie Agurkis is in the back of the room. She's from NWRPCA, and they're just starting exploring this Speakers Bureau and possible trainings through NWRPCA. But the website, the Workforce Resources tab on the website has all of these studies, lots of articles, and Sadie is a good contact person for anything to do in the community health center world.
And maybe you have one more question, and then maybe we'll sit up front in case anybody else wants to come chat. Yes.
So I wonder if you can, either one of you can address the use of this either with team building or with working with dysfunctional teams. I'm thinking sometimes about when executive coaching is recommended, for example. I'm wondering if this could be a substitute, for example.
So I'm actually doing some leadership training with a leadership consultant in mindfulness, so trying to bring it in together into a small team that combines, it's leadership based on emotional intelligence and mindfulness skills. So that is out there. I wouldn't do that in the MBSR. I would do a specific training for that team that's really gets into what are the problems that are in the team, what are you looking to do, and how to bring that in. But and I can talk to you about that too.
And my bias is just like the voluntary aspect of this. I think that there's a certain, forced introspection is not great introspection, right? And so I believe that forcing people to do this is not great. I think if each of the people in the team were able to be mindful, it would be a much less dysfunctional team. But I don't know that one can enforce mindfulness. Yeah. Yeah?
On a follow-up to that, how would you manage a team where I have a picture in my head of this provider who is going to go hogwash, all the new age stuff, all this, I don't believe in that kind of stuff. How do you keep them from interfering with everybody else that wants to try?
Well, I think you make the opportunity. So we have this like super secret listserv that goes to all the UW providers, and it's like you can sign up for a one-day meditation, or you can sign up, and I get the occasional ones, please remove me from this listserv. Like, nobody is going to be happy with all of it, and I think that keeping it voluntary, and I think things speak for themselves, right? When people start to navigate life with a little more ease and they respond rather than react, I think the more you try to convince the naysayer that it's a good thing, the less success you will have. I think you let the goodness happen to the people who sign up. I mean, it's sort of yeah.
Right, I'm not talking convincing them, I'm talking them to not interfere with everybody else.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes transparency is a great thing. Not all of us believe in this as a useful way to deal with problems, and it has a lot of evidence showing that it has helped many people. So let's give it a try, but not cramming. Okay, so I think we'll wrap up.
Okay. And I just wanted to say, if anybody wants to look, I brought the curriculum that's used at the VA teaching. It's very similar what's taught to participants at the VA. There are some adaptations for providers, but if anybody wants to look at that. And thank you so much for your attention, for your time.